So we are going to examine today the five different things that you need to create a wildlife habitat out of your garden, which is not as hard as it may seem. We've got one. We need food for wildlife. What does wildlife eat? Well, a lot of them are herbivores and are going to be eating your plants. Easy enough. You need nectar and plants. Second thing you need is water. Everything living on this planet needs water in order to survive, and wildlife is not an exception to this rule. So if you're going to be having your garden here and having this be a wildlife habitat, you need to provide spaces where they can find water. This can be as easy as putting in a bird bath or a puddler. Anything for, I'm sorry, Bumblebee. Anything for these animals to be able to find nourishment that they need. 3, you need to have shelter. Everything needs a safe space to go on windy days, on stormy days, days where they don't want to be out in whatever the climate is. Maybe it's too hot and they need to come back in to find shade and to find shelter. Protection from predators. Shelter is important. That doesn't mean making a fortified castle keep in your garden. It means providing shrubby things. It means providing sticks. It means providing, as you might see over there in the back, a bee house. Easy enough to do. Number 4, you need places for these animals to raise their young. This doesn't mean that you're gonna have a doe walk into your garden here and just have her babies right here. Maybe your garden space isn't big enough for that, but what about the butterflies that are going to be using your host plants to lay their eggs that hatch into caterpillars that then eat that host plant to turn into their adult butterfly? Something that simple can really help make an entire wildlife habitat. And the last thing, the 5th thing that you will need is to have all of that be sustainable. You don't want a garden that relies on unsustainable practices. You're going to want a garden that uses rain barrels to harvest and collect water. You're going to want to use native plants instead of invasives. You're going to want to use water conservation techniques. And you don't want to be using harsh pesticides and pollutants because, let's be real, if you're using insecticides on a garden, you're going to be killing those beneficial pollinators and other beneficial predators as well. Not quite the point. So, with those 5 things of food, water, shelter, nesting habitat, places to raise their young, and by being sustainable, you can create a certified wildlife habitat out of your garden, even one that's small like mine. Let's take a look at some of the facets of my garden to see if you can get inspired to replicate them, to use some of these in your own backyards and communities. Right there, we've got our seed. This is bird seed, going to be provided obviously for seed-eating birds. But the birds are gonna come, they're gonna find the seed, and then immediately see, oh hey, look at this. There's some other flowers that are going to be great for eating seeds from. Then we have numerous pollinator plants, and these are going to provide great food, nectar sources for all sorts of bees, moths, and butterflies, hummingbirds, small flies, and wasps. Then we've got water. Why is it important to have water? Well, things like this, while it may look a little funky, can actually be a place that butterflies or bees come to drink. It provides water as maybe birds will come and take their little baths in it. But this water source here is going to be a place that also collects minerals, which bees and butterflies will appreciate. We also need shelter. Having shrubby spaces where things can go and hide inside is really important. It protects creatures from predators when they need, and even having spaces that become actual homes, like this solitary bee house, can be very beneficial. Don't forget about these host plants. These are going to provide places for animals to raise their young, and for butterflies, being able to have a spot that they can lay their eggs, where they'll grow into caterpillars and then become adults, is really, really important. Let's get sustainable. These buckets here, and you can see there, are places where I collect rainwater. No, I don't have a rain barrel that collects directly from the downspout, but these buckets will absolutely help me collect rainwater, or in this case, condensation from an air conditioner, that I'll be able to harvest and use in my garden without having to run the tap. You can also participate, even if you have a small space, in soil conservation. This bucket here is filled with all sorts of things that plants love, from carbon to phosphorus to calcium to potassium, everything you'll need. We've got coffee grounds, eggshells, all sorts of great things in there, coconut fibers, and this place will get mixed. And every time that I plant, I also will do some soil remediation work using some of the soil here from this bucket. I save my seed pots to be able to propagate and give out instead of throwing those pots away. You might also find that these nursery pots, which are pretty unsustainable if you ask me, you might find that your garden centers can reuse them. So find out if they have a recycling program to be able to participate in. Now, another tip for being sustainable with your water conservation is looking at how you water. I have two watering cans here. This one holds more than this one does. But look at the spout. We've got a narrow spout and then this big spout here. A lot of water gets wasted with this big spout one, so I'll use this to water areas of wide ground cover, and this one to water very specific plants, mainly because I don't want to be wasting any. That water is a valuable resource. Another way to be sustainable with your water is to look at how you use mulch. This undyed mulch here helps to keep moisture in, so using it properly will help reduce the amount that you need to water, while also getting rid of weeds that might compete with your native plants, like this beautiful bee balm. You can learn more about gardening with ecology in mind, wildlife habitats, or just general gardening tips on my website at www.theartofecology.com, or you can subscribe here to always be up to date on the latest The Art of Ecology goings on, including some extra gardening tips, gardening fun, and ways to get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather.